Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaaya. Lessons for Life from Swami Jagadatmananji's inspiring bestseller Learn to Live, Volume 1, Chapter 2, Infinite Power Hidden Within You. Those who are at the top of the social stratum must help those who are lagging behind. We must do all that is necessary to instill self-confidence in the minds of those who are from lower socio-economic stratum. This is discussed in this episode under the title Temper Social Criticism. According to psychologists and sociologists, the evil thoughts implanted by people in positions of authority in the minds of the exploited and the oppressed remain deeply imprinted, and they are hard to erase. Swami Saradananda, one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, once said to a Swamiji in charge of an institution devoted to the welfare of children, "Don't call your institution an orphanage. That makes the children conscious of their being orphans and helpless and instills an inferiority complex. Call it just children's home." A Swamiji, deeply interested in the uplift of the oppressed classes, asked Swami Saradananda, "What is the way to bring up the Dalits?" Swami Saradananda replied, "It is not proper to drill into the minds of the Dalits that they have been victims of exploitation and oppression. This does more harm than good to the person who has been exploited. They regard themselves as powerless and begin to believe that all the members of the higher classes have kept them constantly under subjugation and oppression. This results in a delay in the awakening of self-confidence and self-help. If this feeling gets deep-rooted in the mind, the downtrodden perpetually entertain feelings of hatred and suspicion regarding the higher-ups. This is harmful not only to the people who are at a higher level, but also to those who are at a lower social and economic level. No good work can be done by constantly nursing feelings of hatred and suspicion. Society consists of individuals at varying levels of evolution due to different circumstances, as for example family background, quality of education, and racial characteristics, etc. This is not a matter to be ashamed of. There is no need for a pupil of the second standard to envy a student of the third standard. In course of time, he too gets promoted to the third standard. It does not mean, of course, that there are no exploiters among the advanced classes, and that there is nobody who is not exploited in the lower ranks of the society. Nor does it mean that there should be no united resistance to oppression. But it is important to note that the sense of hatred resulting from a self-image of self-derogation contains the seed of self-destruction. In the words of Basavanna, a great saint reformer of Karnataka, it will first burn the person himself and then the persons standing nearby. Psychiatrists and social reformers have discovered one tragic factor of life. To quote Erik Erikson, author of Identity, Youth and Crisis, he says, "Therapeutic as well as reformist efforts verify the sad truth that in any system based on exclusion, suppression, and exploitation, the suppressed, excluded, and exploited unconsciously accept the evil image they are made to represent by those who are dominant. A community which, according to the prevailing social system, is subjected to contempt, abuse and exploitation, is likely to associate with its self-image the labels which the ruling class or exploiters use with reference to them in season and out of season, such as wicked, evil, unworthy, useless, good for nothing, etc. Distrust about one's own ability gets established in the mind, and the individual may begin to hate himself. In short, these feelings deal a death blow to the wholesome development of the individual. People who are a little more advanced than the rest, economically, socially, culturally, and intellectually, in religion and spiritual practice, to whatever community they belong, have a tendency to show off, to display their bloated ego consciously or unconsciously before others who are less fortunate than they are. They dub their less fortunate brethren stupid, dull, idling, with contempt and scorn. The earlier they give up such a habit, the better for the whole society. This attitude, which is present in those who support exploitation and in those who are supposedly forward, characterized by arrogance and feelings of superiority, deflates the self-confidence of those who are deprived of the opportunities in education and culture and prevents them from ever trying to lift themselves up. Do they ever contemplate what kind of shock they cause to people lagging behind because of their contemptuous and belittling attitude? If they do not have the farsightedness to realize that by instilling negative features in the self-image of the poor, downtrodden people, they indirectly do harm to them, and in the long run pave the way for their own destruction. What is the meaning of their feelings of superiority? Man's worth should be assessed not on the basis of the limitations and weakness of the moment, but on the basis of his potential and the possibility of development and achievement. We should develop the habit of respecting an individual on the basis of this possibility of achievement. Otherwise, our society will go on erecting hurdles on the way of its own development. It has already erected enough hurdles. Do we see the signs of the development of such consciousness among our educated youth? Elders and educated men should instill in the children the sense of respecting the individual as part of their education and by the example of their own behavior. In this respect, the responsibility of rank holders, intellectuals, professional men, people in positions of authority, and members of the higher classes is much greater. They should try, at least in their own interest, to erase the inferiority complex and to instill self-confidence in the minds of people who have developed a low opinion of themselves. If they are not able to do anything concrete, they should at least sincerely pray for their well-being and upliftment. It would not be an exaggeration to say that most of the so-called intellectuals among us have failed in this regard. They have failed to understand even a basic human problem. To be continued. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.